This is a regular city council meeting of the City of Ocean Shores. It is April 9th, 2024, and the time is 6 p.m. The meeting is being held at the Ocean Shores Convention Center. The meetings are simulcast and archived on KOSW radio. Meetings are live streamed with closed captioning and may be accessed on the city website under council recordings. The meeting can be viewed on cable channel 68, Thursdays at 12 p.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Sires.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Griebel.
Here.
Councilmember Klein.
Here.
Councilmember Scott.
Here.
Councilmember Wills.
Here.
Councilmember Hartman.
Here.
Allison, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we get approval of the meeting agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have no ceremonies or proclamations. Announcements, there's 3 vacancies on the Planning Commission, 2 vacancies on the Parks Board, 4 vacancies on the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board, and 1 vacancy on the Library Board of Trustees. I would like to appoint Jeffrey Byerly and Shelley Johnson to the Parks Board with council consensus. All right, thank you. We have a report, the Rake Forest Biochar Scotch Broom Pilot Project Overview, and that's going to be presented by Chief Brian Ritter and Jake Daly.
Good evening, members of the public, council, and mayor. This gentleman next to me is not Jake. This is Morgan. He's from the DNR, but I'm going to have Jake come up in just a sec. I want to be brief. It's beautiful out. But that's a segue to the concerns we have for our community, which is wildfire. In the last 20 years I've been here, I've seen a huge amount of growth with all of our vegetation and things like that. And the interface problems that we have with the vegetation in the homes poses what I consider somewhat of a danger. And we have ways that we can mitigate that. And one of them is through the Firewise program. And that is through the NFPA. And Morgan here can talk a little bit more about that. But we kind of rely on the DNR quite a bit for a lot of our information, our weather patterns, the availability of resources that we have in our region. So we're kind of partners with that. We'll be doing a lot of public outreach in the coming months on how property owners and homeowners can help reduce their risks by trimming, removing, and maintaining the overgrown vegetation on their properties. We are using the template, like I talked about, the Firewise template on the Ocean Shores Fire Department Facebook post today. There's a video that's put out by Firewise if you guys have access to Firewise. I also have a handout for you on the table that you can look at that has some really good information. One of the problems that we ran into years ago when we tried to implement a lot of this stuff was people took it upon themselves to start cutting their neighbor's vegetation. And we don't want that. We don't want there to be a neighbor dispute. We'd like our community to work together, talk to each other, and talk to your neighbors, and kind of go over the information that we're going to put out to help prevent any kind of catastrophic fires from happening in our city. And you know, it might surprise a lot of people because we live in a really lush green area and it rains a lot. But I'm telling you, we have heat streaks. It does get dry. We do have burn bans, and with our coastal winds, it could cause a problem. So with that, I just want to let you know that you're going to see a lot more push from the fire department on Firewise and things like that. And I'm going to turn it over to Morgan just for a second to talk a little bit about some fire behavior and other things here.
Good evening, all of you from Ocean Shores and the council. Again, I'm Morgan Reisdorfer. I represent the harbor unit of the Olympic Region DNR. So we service essentially Grays Harbor, north of Chehalis River. I'm the assistant fire unit manager of the harbor unit. And as far as any of the fire weather and behaviors and things like that, I can corroborate some of the things that are most of the things Brian was saying as far as seeing greater fire activity here on the Olympic Peninsula, larger potential for, or more potential for larger fires. You can see it a lot in just the way that our weather patterns move about. I'm actually had a discussion this last week when we were talking about the ENSO oscillation at our wildland fire refresher, talking about the similarities that we're seeing in the weather patterns from this past winter moving into this summer, being very similar to the weather patterns that we saw in the 2013, 2014, and 2015 fire seasons, which, at least for us in the DNR, were pretty significant fire years. We had Carlton and we had the Chelan complex, as well as other large major other major fires. So, and to a point as well, the things to consider for all of you is part of the reason that I come here to speak to you is we in the DNR, especially over here on the west side, we see that fires tend to require kind of a human element to come along. It's not like over here or on the west or on the east side of the state where you have lightning and whatnot. So part of the reason that we like to support the Firewise programs as well as other fire prevention programs is it provides a lot of education for the local populace as to what they can do. Because 9 times out of 10, if I as a wildland firefighter run into a member of the public out on the fire line or near the fire line, the first question they ask is, "What can I do?" So this is kind of setting the community up for success in engaging with Firewise. So I'd be happy to help out Brian or as much as possible. We are kind of in a fledgling growth area in fire prevention in the harbor unit, but the growth that I've seen in the past couple of years has been pretty exponential.
Thanks, Maureen. So with that comes the thinning of fuels, is something that we're looking at that we all need to consider around our homes. And again, it's in the flyer there, but there's a pilot project that's the city's accepted, and we've talked with my friend Jake here, and he'll come up and talk about U.S. Rake Force, what their purpose is, and again, it's all about thinning those fuels that could catch fire when it gets hot and dry out here. So here you go, Jake.
Thank you, Chief Ritter. Thank you, Council, for having me, and thank you, Ocean Shores, for having us. I'm Jake Daly. I'm the CEO of the U.S. Rake Force. We do hazardous fuels reduction to prevent catastrophic wildfire. The fires are coming. Like you heard the DNR guy, I forget your name, Morgan. And they're killing people, right? People are choking to death from the smoke. And we have an overabundance of hazardous fuels in our forests and in our wildland urban interfaces. And the former president, I'm not like getting too political at all. The former president said, "Rake the forest." And then 6 months later, he started the U.S. Space Force. And I was like, you should have started the U.S. Rake Force because the fires are real, right? Our communities are burning, and we need to do this work. So this pilot project we have going on at the Quinault Marina is a 5-acre, we pulled 5 acres of Scotch broom for QNEB, and we are going to do a conservation burn to produce biochar. It's a controlled pile burn, and we're not extinguishing it to ash. It's a limited smoke that comes off of these burns, and we are preventing the carbon from being all of the carbon from being released in the atmosphere, and that creates a soil product called biochar. It's potentially a carbon credit earning activity that can start subsidizing this work. So this is what our pilot project is about. It's about hazardous fuels reduction. It's about biochar. It's about community safety. And for me, I'm a combat veteran, and when I see a threat to our communities, I feel a duty to act. And this is action. So thank you for having us. Do you want me to cover anything else, Chief Ritter? Oh yeah, the biochar. So we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna distribute the biochar from this project because we're gonna test the biochar to make sure that it's free of Scotch broom seeds. We don't need to help that thing along than it already is. So we'll spread the biochar back onto the Quinault Marina site, and it'll improve the soil there. And but when we do, for your information, biochar is a carbon soil amendment. It is an incomplete burn of organic matter, and that creates a nutrient storage device. It holds water, and historically, the fire cycle has provided char to the forest, but we've moved into the forest and stopped the fire cycle, right? So when a fire starts, we fight it to protect people, right? That's great, but we're interrupting a natural cycle at that point. So we can safely add to that cycle in a controlled way. So that's our pitch. We start the burn on Sunday. We're going from Sunday through Tuesday, and it is permitted. And we're working with Chief Ritter and the fire department for water tenders to be able to extinguish our burns. But again, it's in a pit. We have 8-foot walls of sand that is a berm, right? And then inside the berms is the pit, and that's where we're going to burn. It's as safe as we can possibly do it, but it's if it catches fire, right? If it caught fire, those houses would be toast.
Oh.
So we have to do this, right?
Yeah. We're good. We're well protected. We are well.
Fire break.
Well, good job, Jake.
Yeah. I didn't
great
mean
job.
to scare
Yeah, no.
him.
But at the end of the day, this is a pilot project. There's a lot of eyes watching this. What it produces is beneficial for the environment, and it's a very, I think, progressive way of helping us thin some of the materials that we have. And if it goes well, there might be a future in it. I know the product that it produces might be able to be distributed at the compost center that the city is now open for people to bring their yard waste, which I think is tremendous. If you don't know about it, please look up on the city website about the composting site that they have for the city, because a lot of people are now starting to clean their yards. And we've gone on a couple burns today, and they're just out burning, and you have the option of bringing some of that stuff to the compost center. So we want to do it safe. We're going to do it safe, but I appreciate you being here, and thanks DNR for being here. And again, you're going to see more from the fire department coming out on Firewise and just protecting your own property from the dangers of wildfire. And this is beneficial because it's helping us thin that Scotch broom down at the south end, and there's a tremendous amount of Scotch broom in our city. So
It would be great to have any of you out to the burn on
Yeah,
Like
if you guys want to go
Sunday,
Sunday
Monday,
on the
Tuesday?
property and take a look at what they're doing.
The Quinault Marina. It's the field across the RV.
Yeah, right off Discovery across from the Quinault Marina right there.
We'll probably start at 8 on Monday or on
Sunday, 8 a.m. on Sunday. I don't know. Are we taking questions? No. Okay. Thank you.
All right, public comment. Public communication to council is intended for communication to the city council regarding general council business or policy not on tonight's agenda. Address comments and questions to the city council body, not to an individual member or to a city staff. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We request that your comments be nice and respectful. This is not a question and answer time, and the council cannot engage in conversation with the public. No person may use the public comment for the purpose of campaigning or advertisement. The city council will begin the time once the citizen has started their public comment. At 2 minutes, you will see a green light, followed by a yellow light indicating 30 seconds remain of your public comment period. The red light will notify the reader that the public comment time has ended. Order of public comments. First will be individuals attending the in-person. Second are individuals attending remotely. General public comments, whether in person or remotely, will continue in the usual position on the agenda. So, ready to start.
All right. We have 2 public comments that will come later that are associated with item 8 on the ordinance, or on the ordinance that we're proposing. And let's begin then with our first public comment. General Susan Canary, proclamation request.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Susan Canary. I am the legislative co-chair of Governor Inslee's Washington State Council on Aging and the chair of the Olympic Area Agency on Aging Advisory Committee. I speak to you this evening with a request to add an important item to your next council meeting's agenda. Washington State is home to nearly 1.9 million Americans, 60 and older. And by 2030, all baby boomers will be older than 65, so that 1 in 5 Washingtonians will be at retirement age, with the number of older adults significantly outpacing the growth of working age adults. We are committed to supporting older adults by reducing hunger for the more than 65,000 who are experiencing food insecurity and offering social connection through senior nutrition programs. And we are working to reframe aging issues by spreading awareness of bias toward older people. The 2024 Older Americans Month theme is, quote, powered by connection, and recognizes the importance of social connection on health and well-being, including the critical work that senior centers, family caregivers, direct care workers, community meal sites, area agencies on aging, and other home and community-based service organizations provide to mitigate the adverse effects of social isolation on older adults. My request this evening is for the mayor and the City Council of Ocean Shores to join the governor of the great state of Washington in declaring May 2024 as Older Americans Month. I will email you a copy of Governor Inslee's proclamation and ask that you add it to your agenda to be read at the May council meeting. Thank you for caring about our older Americans.
Sherry Dooley, thank you for all your hard work.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens of Ocean Shores. Something amazing happened last week in our wonderful town. A group of 20 plus citizens and city employees came together to build a new pocket park at the High Dunes Trail. The park will have information boards, the razor clam carving donated by our own Anthony Robinson, and a bench donated by the Sons of the American Revolution. On Tuesday, after receiving our safety briefing and an overview of the scope of work from our project manager, Becky Leach, we went to work digging trenches. It quickly became apparent that this part of the project was going to need more than just manual people power, as we encountered large roots and rocks that were more than we had bargained for. We stopped and reassessed the situation and came back with a plan. Nick and Alex from the sewer department came to our rescue and dug out all the required trenches with a backhoe. What would have taken several days of digging was done within 90 minutes. The street department supplied us with safety cones and sawhorses. After a quick refresher, they also let our volunteer engineers use their laser level. On Friday, they delivered 6 front loader buckets of sand to help with the project. Once the groundwork is done, the water department will be building the concrete base for the razor clam. I want to send out a special thank you to our mayor and to the city administrator for coming over and providing encouragement and support. Also, a special thank you to all of the citizens who were so kind and provided lunch for our team of volunteers. They loved what we are doing and wanted to show their appreciation. We had pizza, Subway, and Phil at Aft Galley donated chips, drinks, condiments, and napkins to go along with the hot dogs that were purchased by a grateful citizen. And last but not least, we owe a debt of gratitude to the Defenders of the Coast and the Ocean Shores VFW. We hope that everyone will come out to the new park on Wednesday, April 24th at 2 p.m. for the naming and dedication ceremony by the Sons of the American Revolution. This park is dedicated to American veterans. Finally, come see what a group of volunteers working with the city can accomplish. Great things are happening in Ocean Shores. Thank you.
I believe it's Jerry Newcomb, Duck Lake.
Thank you. I'm not 100% sure that what I've got's going to be a whole lot of information, because I was hoping to ask some questions, but I guess we're not allowed to do that. Is that correct? Okay. So I'll just explain my situation. On Duck Lake, they've got buoys for wake areas, and they're placed in a lot of areas that really don't look like they need it, like the residential areas. They've got it on the green belts to help erosion, but it seems like it would be better if they had more of them in the lake areas around the houses to protect the docks and obviously the bank. A lot of the docks are getting beat pretty badly. I know that the lake's probably patrolled by the police, but it's pretty rare. And it seems like it's been a lot rarer since COVID. You might see one on a holiday weekend on the lake. Occasionally we have jet skis, which aren't supposed to be on the lake at all. And the boats, they don't, they say you're supposed to be 50 feet water skiing. Nobody abides by that. So I guess what I wanted to see was more buoys in the residential areas and just try to eliminate the erosion. Thank you.
Richard Sivanyanan, speed limit on the lake between Overlake and Bridge and North Bay Park.
I have the same problem. We're neighbors of Jerry. And there's been, over the years, we've lived there 18 years, and the speed limit is 30 miles an hour on that portion of the lake, and that's insane. The wakes that the boats put out are almost like a small tsunami when it hits the banks. And there's children that swim out there in the summer going across the lake. And if they would put a buoy just in the middle of the lake, that would solve the whole thing. Thank you.
I believe this is Joe DeVore, Duck Lake Shore Erosion.
No, he was just. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Joe DeVore. I happen to be Richard's neighbor, and all three of us see the same thing every year. Boats getting closer, towables churning it up more and more every year. The speed is untenable for that shoreline, for the erosion. It gets worse every year. The towables in particular, when you have that, I've spoken on this before, you have that washing machine effect. The personal watercrafts, the jet skis, are already prohibited, and the towables have the same characteristics: the sharp turns, the aggressive motion, and as you're planing, you have a wake anyway. But when you turn into it, you have the gunnel pushing that wake. And that's what happens when you have towables turning in those basins down by the two bridges in those little turning areas. It's, I think the city council, they partnered with Grays Harbor Conservation District, and they have the freshwater study that's coming up. And I think they'd be missing a great opportunity to take a look at that. The city has my email address. I'll be happy to speak with anybody that wants to come down, or if you could give me guidance and point me in the right direction of what department or who the point person might be on that, or a process that I might be able to follow to have this more formally looked at. But this is the third time I've spoke, but it's observed by others as well, especially in that stretch where we live. It's a narrow area where they like to do the towables. Season starting again. Saw some fishermen scouting the lake, taking their depth finders out there looking for the schools. And already, I haven't seen any skiers or tubes, but there's already been a couple of deep V fishing boats that have come well within the 50 feet of the docks. Once I put my boat in, everybody else puts their boat in, they take a beating. They rock up against that dock. The erosion is getting worse and worse every year. Like I said, I'll be happy to point out the root ball of my tree that was once covered with dirt just 3-4 short years ago. But I appreciate the time that City Council and the Mayor gives to the citizens to present issues and problems and concerns to the elected officials. Thank you.
Melissa Smith, Saturday.
Good evening, Mayor. Melissa Smith, Ocean Shores resident. Good evening, Mayor, Council and Ocean Shores community. This past Saturday, a public meeting was held in our taxpayer-funded, city-funded library. This was a meeting held by a group here in Ocean Shores, one that a certain council member of the council is fully aware of, as this person founded this local chapter after the 2016 national presidential election. This meeting was published on Facebook, and I quote, I'm going to read it. The MAGA movement is following the footsteps of Hitler. Today, we'll be having an all-members meeting of indivisibles. Trump has identified our group as his #1 enemy. We have a large chapter opposing him here in Ocean Shores with over 150 members. The meeting is at the Ocean Shores Library at 4 o'clock today. We are kicking off our game plan to defeat the bastard. New members are welcome. We have chapters in all 50 states. It's right here. Here's David Doan's post. It's right here. Don't tell me it's not true, Miss Kate.
It's not campaigning. It's not campaigning.
This meeting was political in nature, held by one party with 3 candidates campaigning from the Puget Sound area. This had nothing to do with our local governance, our city, nor our citizens of Ocean Shores. This was such a poor use of our local library and its resources, and why so many citizens have issues with the way this library is managed. Thank you.
And then we have one remote public comment, Don Williams, LTAC.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Hear you perfectly.
Thank you very much. Don Williams, resident of Ocean Shores. Tonight I want to discuss the meeting of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. It's called LTAC, that met yesterday. Its purpose is to distribute tax dollars collected from hotel and motel taxes to applicants for projects that are proposed that will bring visitors from outside the city. And this year's meeting was really focused on this heads and beds from outside the city, unlike earlier meetings on previous years. Councilmember Hartman chairs that LTAC committee, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it tonight. So I'm not going to take away from him, but I just want to have a few comments about it. There were like 18 applications for projects totaling about $600,000. And the purpose of yesterday's meeting was only to discuss the 18 projects. That's what the agenda said, but not to discuss how the available $245,000, which is only about a third of the requests, was going to be distributed. That would take place at a later meeting. I believe that's going to now be April 22nd. And I want to compliment the committee on how they evaluated these projects using criteria quite unlike previous meetings. That this year they focused on hotel motel occupancy and bookings at the convention center, especially not on the weekends and on the off season. It was quite a bit different approach, and it was very, very good, and I compliment them on doing that. That's what the committee was supposed to do. The agenda said that each applicant would be invited back to discuss their proposal. And that took place, the discussion took place, but the result is not what the agenda said it was going to be. The idea was to invite the 18 applicants back at the later meeting, and at that point distribute the $245,000. But what happened is during this meeting, in great detail, the applicants were all discussed, and half of them were actually eliminated by votes taken by the LTAC committee, and those will not be invited back. Only 9 will be coming back, and that's not according to what the agenda said. And I believe you're going to have a problem with some very disappointed applicants that were told they would be invited to the later meeting, and they apparently now are not going to be invited. So I just want to state that I thought that was very unfair. The discussions were great. And the outcome was fine, but the approach taken that voted to eliminate, taking votes that were not part of the agenda to eliminate the about half of the applicants. And perhaps Mr. Hartman can comment on that. And I want to thank you very much for your time, and hope you have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Council. That concludes public comment.
All right, next we have staff reports, and we'll start off with Scott Anderson.
Good evening again. This will be fairly short tonight, but a couple of important things. The Kimley Horn Streets Master Plan. Kimley Horn is, you actually heard it mentioned earlier tonight. They're conducting our 5-year streets master plan, and they're going to be up here shortly in a vehicle. They're going to be driving all of the streets of the city in order to create a digital record. And that data collection vehicle is going to traverse every street in Ocean Shores. It's going to document our pavement conditions. It's going to try to help us allocate or locate where striping is needed, and also find places the city might consider placing additional signage and traffic stop signs. So we'll be doing that. And the process of the data collection should begin in about 1 to 2 weeks. It's going to take roughly 3 to 4 weeks to get the complete record of the analyzed data. But this is going to be a big step forward in creating reliable master plan for our city streets. And it will help the Ocean Shores Public Works Department prioritize where we need to invest in road improvements, and tell us, with the lack of spraying that has been done at Ocean Shores, what, if any, damage has been done to our roads and what mitigation measures we might take moving forward to address that issue. A few things that citizens should know. We have the draft 2024 Comprehensive Parks and Rec Plan, and all residents and stakeholders of Ocean Shores should know about this. We're excited to announce that we're seeking public comment on the Comprehensive Park and Rec Plan. The plan aims to enhance the quality of life for our community by improving and expanding our parks, our recreational facilities, and our green spaces. And the Parks Board, along as well as the city, they value your input, and we want to ensure that the plan reflects the needs and desires of our residents. As a result, we have a 30-day comment period to provide an opportunity for your voice to be heard. And you can do that anytime between April 8th and May 8th, and here's how you can provide feedback. You can attend a public hearing on April 23rd at the Ocean Shores Convention Center to express your thoughts in person. You can email your comments to publiccomment@osgov.com, and this will be online. And you can also mail or send written comments to the city of Ocean Shores. But we are encouraging everyone to read through the plan, look through it, and participate, because your input is vital to shaping the future of our city's parks. So again, this will all, how to contact us, where to find this information, will all be put online. So just a reminder, spring cleanup, April 24th through 28th. I won't go through the rules and regulations, but just a reminder that's coming up, and that's obviously a big event in the city, and we're getting the public works yard ready to handle all of that. And then last thing, this is not so much for the public, but it's more of an explanation because council asked me for that. We talked a while ago about creating an ordinance that would allow us to keep our traffic revenues from speeding tickets. And there was some things that were not conveyed properly when we did it. So the legal framework for revenue is already set by RCW. We can't adjust or alter traffic infractions specifically. And under the Ocean Shores Municipal Code, the court is obligated to follow the RCWs in terms of monetary penalties. So the Washington courts depict the amount a state can remit on these, and those are numbers that we cannot change at all. But that said, there are certain traffic infractions matters that we can adjust, but they are adjusted internally. They're not done by ordinance. But 3 examples of these are warrant fees, where we're allowed to keep that money in the city in order to quash a warrant. Administrative court costs and fees can go directly to the city. And then any deferred traffic infractions can be kept in the city. And you can do that once every 7 years. So in short, we can't adjust traffic infractions. They are set by statute, but there are select fees that our court administrator is allowed to modify, and we have done that. So I hope that answers council's question. And that concludes my city administrator report.
All right, thanks, Scott. So now we have council liaison reports and council committee reports, and we're going to start off with Rich Hartman.
All right, so it's been a busy couple of weeks. Attended agenda review. Yesterday worked with a small group that's trying to push forward with Wayfair signs for the city. Great work there by volunteers. Spent some time with Becky Leach working on a better way to harvest the information from the capital facilities plan. That's ongoing. I know there's going to be another meeting coming up soon, but tried to get the ball rolling with something council can read better and understand easier, and the public to as well. And then as a commented about the LTAC meeting, it is my first year attempting to wrangle the LTAC committee and all of the intricacies of the fund. We did meet Monday. The main goal was to have the 4 board members talk to each other about all of the applicants. It was a little overwhelming. There were 18 applications. As was mentioned, it was $607,105 requested. We have approximately $245,000 that we could decide to distribute, and there's no question that the agenda said discussion, and part of the discussion underneath it was that applicants would be invited to a subsequent meeting. What the committee decided to do, because with 18 applicants, to listen to everyone make a long presentation and then to have follow-up on every single one of them, it would have been a miracle to even get it done in 4 hours. And what we worked through on Monday was trying to prioritize the ones that we literally wanted to have back to ask questions of, which we are going to do, and that the other applications that we didn't want to ask questions of got put aside. That doesn't mean that those applicants can't come, since these are all open meetings. Doesn't mean that they won't be able to comment, because we will have public comment at the second meeting. But there is no question that we did prioritize applicants. And if I didn't do something perfectly correct, I apologize. But we were trying to be reasonable in narrowing down $600,000+ worth of requests. Again, the next meeting is going to be on the 22nd. We plan on having it start at noon, I believe. Is that correct? At the library. And that meeting won't be exactly short either, but we'll get through the rest of it. We haven't officially voted on anything yet. We will vote for and against applicants in the second meeting. So again, I apologize for anything I did wrong or misled someone by. Sorry, let me read my notes here. I think that's all I have for my liaison reports.
All right, thanks, Rich. Allison.
I will have finance and public works meetings next week. Our ad hoc committee reviewing guidelines and ethics met for the first time today. We got a lot of work ahead of us. We got a lot done today, and I'd like to thank the members of that committee for being willing to put in the time. Sarah, Denise, and Joe, Jane, and Rick. So thank you for all your hard work and your time commitment to this committee.
Thank you. Denise.
Yeah, I attended the Capitol Facilities meeting with Rich and with Becky, and Rich is right. The software that we saw was quite complicated. I started playing around with the report writing software, and we definitely need help from the consultant in order to produce a report really the council can really use, as well as the city in assessing our facilities. I signed warrants and also attended, as Allison just said, our council guidelines and ethics committee, which just started today. And again, thank you to our citizens who are participating in that. They gave just really terrific insight into what needs to be done. The radio board does not meet until the end of the month, but I did want to remind people that you can get all of the current happenings in Ocean Shores on the radio station website, as well as the clamming dates and the tides. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Lisa Scott.
Thank you. I attended agenda setting and I signed warrants. This is between this council, the last council meeting and this one. None of the my council liaison reports or council committees met, so they will be meeting in the next couple of weeks, and that includes Public Works and Council of Government. So I will have a report then.
All right, thanks. Tom?
I attended Public Works and Finance last month, both of those, and They do not meet again until a couple weeks from now, so I will have a report when we meet again. And that's pretty much what I got so far today.
All right, Richard.
So thank you. I attended the March 30 Town Hall meeting on the waterways. Thank you, Mayor, for putting that on. Informative. I also attended or participated in the agenda setting on the 28th of March. The Fresh Waterways Advisory Board is currently suspended, so there's nothing to report there. The Parks Board meets tomorrow, so that'll be next council meeting's report. And finally, the Harbor Regional Health meets on the fourth Tuesday of each month, but 1 month they meet at 6 p.m. That conflicts with City Council. And the following month they meet at 1 p.m. So at the end of this month, I'll be able to attend that meeting via Zoom. And it was suggested about reading their minutes. Well, they don't publish their minutes until after the minutes are approved at the next meeting. So that means the minutes that I missed at the last meeting, at the last City Council meeting, won't get published for another month. So anyway, nothing to report on the Health Committee. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Lisa.
Thank you. The library board meets tomorrow, Wednesday, April 10th at 3 o'clock. You can go in person to the library or Zoom in. They are looking for a new board member, and they did want to brag on their March checkouts. So material checkouts are up from the year before. In the month of March, they checked out 6,027 items. And they are averaging 149 people a day using the library.
All right, thanks. Well, next up is the mayor's report, but first I want to wish Tom Taylor a happy birthday. So. All right, composting has been going really well. It's available to homeowners every Saturday, 11 to 3. But please, no dump type trailers. I don't know if this is somebody living in town that's a landscaper, but that container we got's huge, but it's not going to last very long if people are doing some kind of a landscaping clearing or something. I don't know. But they brought in 2 huge trailers, and we're not going to accept those anymore. The idea behind it was for the homeowner, and this looked more like a commercial operation. So wanted to share that. We got card readers coming in to our Public Works Yard fueling station. They'll be installed on April 10th. So that's something that we've been waiting for to get. And that'll be a good way to budget our gas for all the different departments after that gets installed. The camping survey, requesting if you're for or against 120 days of camping, will be mailed out at the end of next week. So all of those will be in the mail here shortly. Stop signs, they will be installed tomorrow, and that'll be at Canal and Perch and Canal and Albatross. And then we're adding another one on Dolphin at Dolphin and Piranha. So those will be going in tomorrow on that. The Pocket Park by the High Dunes Trail, it was mentioned by Sherry earlier, and I just want to say that this thing is being completed by a great group of volunteers, defenders of the coast, and they've been working hard for multiple days out there, and it's really great to see what can be accomplished when nobody cares who gets credit. You know, they're all jumping in there and just doing what needs to be done, and it's really a great thing to see. There has been some questions in the city amongst our citizens that wanting to know if we have a permit for that job or if we need a permit or where the permit is at. Our building inspector determined we did not need a permit for some landscaping type work. So that permit doesn't exist. So just wanted to share that. And that's all I have for my report. See, next up, we got the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So under new business, we've got ratification of emergency proclamation 2024. It had to be amended. So the city is asking for this ratification authorizing the city department directors to exercise the powers vested under Chapter 38.52 of the RCW in light of the existence of the current emergency response situation without regard to non-constitutional budget law limitations, requirements of competitive bidding and publication of notices, provisions pertaining to the performance of public work, entering into contracts and incurring of obligations, the employment of temporary workers, the rental of equipment, the purchase of supplies and materials, and the appropriation of expenditures of public funds as may be necessary in response to an emergency dated January 3rd, 2024. So what's this about is previous proclamation stated that the expenditures of the public funds may not exceed 82,000, and that's what we figured we had a pretty good shot at hitting that. But having that berm happen to be repaired 2 more times, we have now got an invoice, and it's up to 152,000. We don't think that there's going to be a need for any more work on that the rest of this year until we get into the winter time, but we're working on a permanent solution to that. But under RCW 39.04.281E, the city has the ability to waive bidding requirements when it's an emergency, and we did have an emergency there. So the city finds it in the council and the community's best interest to present the difference of these exceeding expenditures so that we can stay transparent here. But due to the impacts of the berm during the recent storm system, the city will have to do additional work, which has the potential of requiring an additional amendment, which the city will bring forward at that time. In addition, we will keep the council up to date on the progress, but we are looking for a more permanent situation. Yeah, we got public comment. No public. Questions or discussion from the council? All right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ratification of Emergency Proclamation 2024-01 as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, we got next order of business is presented by Steve Anderson.
This will be a little longer than I think the one we just did. So this is an ordinance of the City Council, the City of Ocean Shores, Washington, and it's amending Section 82100 of the Ocean Shores Municipal Code pertaining to permitted animal trapping activities, and amending Section 604031 and 604110 of the Ocean Shores Municipal Code pertaining to nuisance animals and animal care, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. I just want to remind everyone this is first reading, and what we're trying to do with this ordinance is to sort of thread a needle. We know that people love their pets and they want them returned safely, and that Ocean Shores is not a safe environment because of wildlife when people's pets get outside. On the other hand, we want to make sure that if we're retrieving those pets, we're doing it in a safe and responsible manner that's not putting wildlife in danger. The first part of this ordinance is fairly straightforward, and the the language about rodents is actually in there because the way that the city code reads right now, it actually reads as though it would prohibit even Beacon from trapping rats and pests. That actually isn't technically correct because state has preemption over our local law when it comes to that. But we just want to make sure that our local law reflects what the Washington state law is in that. And so that just makes it pretty straightforward. The second part is obviously newer. It obviously has to deal with what the process would be and how we would go about trapping pets on private property. And I believe at this point, David Galazin, who is an attorney with Kenyon Dissond, the same firm where Kendra works, has worked on these ordinances in the past for other municipalities. and I believe we have him on the line. And if we do, David, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. So there was a brief delay while I was being switched over to a panelist. So I might have missed the last couple seconds of what you were saying. But if you want me to just kind of run through what this is intended to do, or if you have specific questions.
Why don't you run through what it's intended to do, then we'll go for public comment, and then when we have specific questions, they'll come from council.
Okay, thank you. As you mentioned previously, we have sections designed to recognize first that the blanket prohibition would generally apply with exceptions, and those exceptions are for the non-lethal or control of pests, and the non-lethal humane traps that could be set out either by animal control for nuisance animals, as defined in section 6.04.031. And then there's additional amendment to the animal care section in 6.04.110 that would allow the owner of any dog or cat that is lost or missing to use a cage trap or similar humane trap, not a body gripping trap, only to assist in recovery of that specific animal. We're talking about domestic animals in this case, so not anything that is defined as wildlife within state law or state regulation. The parameters within which these could be allowed would be either that it's placed on the owner's own property or on other private property with the express prior permission of that property owner. So we're not talking about placing them or leaving them on public property where nobody has notice of what's going on. The trap must be equipped with or used in conjunction with functioning video camera capabilities so that in a real time, the person operating the trap can see if something has been captured within it. Any animal caught within the trap must be released within 2 hours. That way, nothing's being left unattended, the same way you would want your own animal left unattended for a period of time. No trap may be left on the same property for more than 72 hours. And this is based on the idea that in the industry, in terms of companies that provide these types of services or companies that rent out traps to people within the state of Washington currently in cities where these activities are allowed, the recommended procedure is that if within roughly 72 hours or a little bit longer, targeted animal has not been successfully caught there, to relocate it to another location. If the animal is not going to get into the cage trap within 72 hours, then you need to try a new location. So that way you don't have traps left there indefinitely, somebody setting it and leaving it for a month and not maintaining it. And then if any animal that does happen to be injured, by accident, by operation of the trap, must immediately contact the animal control officer. So this will generally permit certain activities within the city if passed, but it will never permit anything that is prohibited by state law. And if there is activity that overlaps with a regulation of, say, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and a permit is required for any specific activity, this would not supersede that, not obviate the need to go ahead in any specific situation for a person to check with Fish and Wildlife to see if they need a permit in order to conduct the proposed activity. But this way, to the extent it's allowed by state law, and again, we're talking about domestic animals, not wildlife, which is sort of the purview of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, then this would be permitted by operation of this ordinance.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Do we have public comment?
We do, Mayor. The first, Scott Harris from the Department of Washington Fish and Wildlife.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With just a few minutes, I'm going to just rocket through this. Scott Harris, your local wildlife conflict specialist with Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. I just, as an agency, all these proposed changes we have big concerns with. They do They don't really conform with RCWs or WACs or CFRs, which are the federal codes. There's some problems there. And I just really want to set the record straight, since seems to be resolving around the incident with the bear cubs. There's a lot of misinformation on social media. We are not okay with it. I want to make this very clear. This was a dangerous situation. And to me, it was pretty reckless. If you have not read the officers' reports, both Officer Beebe and Officer McComber's reports, I highly recommend you do. One thing I do want to do is highly commend Officer Beebe, Officer McComber, and Hound Handler Matt Cox for thinking outside the box and finding a way to resolve this. Because I was not available that day, and I'm the only one that is able to immobilize. So it could have ended up really bad. I did reach out to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on this. They have concerns. Please understand that even you are required to have federal permits in situations where you might catch a migratory bird, even accidentally. And when you start putting large traps out, do you really up that probability? In closing, we're highly concerned with how this is written and the timing of how it came out. I'm just going to end here with the recommendation that the council table any changes and start a broader discussion on code changes consistent with RCWs and WACs that consider the uniqueness of ocean shores and take public safety seriously, because I'm seeing a lot of safety problems for both the public and how this is written, myself, my coworkers, and potentially city employees. Please continue to enforce your existing current codes and prosecute violators. And that's it. Thank you.
And then our other public comment, Seth, and I don't want to, I'm just going to let you say your last name.
Seth Taninga. And good evening, Mayor, council members, good people of Ocean Shores. My name is Seth Taninga, and I'm an attorney who happens to have an interest in this trapping municipal code. I have had an opportunity to review it. I do believe it is a good amendment to the code as it exists. However, I share many of the points and interests that Mr. Harris is bringing up, in the fact that the current amendment addresses what happens if that it prohibits the intentional capturing of bears, and that it permits the intentional capturing of animals. However, and it stems from the situation regarding the baby bears, that it does not deal with what happens if you accidentally catch the baby bear. And I believe that perhaps a clause could be added to the amendment to provide the good people of Ocean Shores some guidance as to what they could do. When a private entity runs out of their expertise, runs out of their knowledge, that they should turn to animal control, that they should turn to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, these trained officers. Mr. Harris brings up the issue of migratory birds and the permits that are required. This is when a private individual's experience runs out, and we should, I believe, call on the expertise of these trained professionals. And there is unfortunately nothing in the code that gives guidance to what should happen if an unfortunate circumstance like that should arise. Thank you.
We have any other public comments? David, and then Lillian, yeah.
Good evening, council members. I'm David Lynn, a 15-year resident of Ocean Shores. First, I'd like to say to the animal concerned, there is no difference between accidental and intentional trapping. Legislative action should be based upon rational thought and scientific evidence, not upon emotions. While we can all feel the pain of a lost companion animal, we cannot let that override our responsibility to protect our native wildlife. The public trust doctrine posits that all wildlife is held in trust for all of the citizens of the state and must be treated accordingly. Our government at all levels are trustees for our wildlife with the responsibility to protect them. There are too many problems with this ordinance to describe in 3 minutes, so I will just focus on the most egregious of them. This unregulated trapping is dangerous, reckless, and irresponsible. It could not be more clearly demonstrated than the trapping of 2 black bear cubs last year. That resulted in a situation where both humans and bears were at a grave risk. Extraordinary efforts were required by the Department of Fish and Wildlife to resolve that situation without injury or death. If a human would have been injured, the mother bear likely would have been killed and her cubs orphaned. There are no domestic animal-only traps, so each baited trap is indiscriminate and will capture a wide range of wild animals, causing them harm. A trapped animal can suffer great physical and emotional trauma in such a confined space. The ordinance will allow anyone, for any purpose, to set baited traps since there is no practical regulation nor oversight. How will the purpose of the trap be determined? These traps could be used for recovering a lost dog, but they also may be used for more nefarious purposes. The ordinance states that the trap must be equipped with a video camera which can be continuously monitored at all times, and that any animal caught in the trap must be released within 2 hours of its capture, with no explanation of how these things will be accomplished. When will the trapper be allowed to sleep if they are continuously monitoring the camera for 72 hours? Can they monitor the camera while driving? If an animal is trapped at 1 a.m. when most wildlife activity occurs, will the trapper release it before 3? Can we call and find out? These impossible requirements, and we should not delude ourselves into thinking that they will be implemented. These are just feel-good words on paper with no real-world effect. The ordinance does not consider the ability of the Department of Fish and Wildlife to respond in a timely manner to a dangerous situation. They can't always be on site in a drop of a hat. Last year we were lucky. We will not be so lucky in the future. Inexplicably, neither the Department of Fish and Wildlife nor the city's animal control officer were consulted in drafting this ordinance. Why was their expertise ignored? The trapping provided in this ordinance violates RCW 77.15.190 and RCW 7715.790. Thank you.
All right, Lillian.
Lillian Broadbent, Ocean Shores. I am adamantly opposed to this ordinance or any ordinance that expands trapping. I have arrived late at night to find a trapped raccoon on my front door. I had to call animal control, which was then Mr. Thornton, who was extremely unhappy, and he was afraid to let the animal out because it was so agitated. I don't want that to happen anymore, anywhere. And I think that our laws are adequate to cover that. Having said that, we have a magnificent individual in town who has for many, many years been trapping lost animals. And they've done it successfully and with a few exceptions, humanely. I would like, rather than opening the door to trapping at large, I would like to see us reserve it to a couple permits and have those permits held by individuals who've been trained to handle trapped animals. I don't want to pick a cat out of a trap that I don't know the cat. I'm sure there are other people who can, But I would like to see the licenses issued, the people that are going to do it trained and named, and then create the process for those people to go out after our lost cats and dogs, because that's a tremendous service. And I don't want us to inhibit that, but I also don't want to expand that to the population at large. Thank you.
Yes, Joe.
So it's the first reading, and this is just something that needs to probably be worked through. There was concerns brought up tonight that can be addressed, looked at. It's good that we have these forums to do that. Previous speaker brings up a great point. Maybe it should be limited, or they should show expertise in handling the concerns that might arise by the gentleman from Fish and Game. But I think these things are navigable. As an example, the concern about, does the person have to constantly monitor the camera to ensure that it's the 2-hour period? Having a ring system, I can tell you a cat can walk down my driveway at 3 o'clock in the morning and I will receive a notification that would wake me up or that would alert me. There's technology out there that can address that particular concern. Licensing or permitting or identifying people that have received specialized training, that's another thing. But that's why you have a first reading and bring it to the public, so these issues can be brought out. But I don't think you should throw out the baby with the bathwater. Take a look at it. Take the input. Take the professional advice. Take the community concerns, and maybe meld it into something else and bring it again the next meeting. Thank you for your time.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Fain. I'm from Ocean Shores. And just to set the record straight, I was in attendance when the Cubs were caught. So I know a lot about it. One thing I will say, it's very concerning wildlife. We've always been concerned about it. And cameras are on those cages constantly, and they're watched constantly, not just by one person. There's a group of people that also monitor and will help if, one's asleep or one's here or one's there. There's kind of a system that goes with it that maybe you guys need to be aware of when you write the ordinances or whatever, how it actually works. The other thing I would say is that one cat in their lifetime, one female cat can have 120 cats. And it costs about, $500 to $600 to fix an animal these days. Therefore, you have lots and lots of people, tourists, people who are here short term and they take off and just leave their animals. I've picked them up at hotels and all over the streets. And at this point, the ordinances, I have been told by Officer Beebe directly, are that if I pick up a cat who has been crying and howling at a hotel for a week and I'm getting requests to come and get it, if I go and pick that cat up, it's illegal. And I have been told this by Officer Beebe, thrown in jail for doing that, for picking up a lost, needy animal. That's ridiculous in my book. So I think we can all, understand that this can be maybe, there's more than one side to this, but you also have to keep in mind, we are a tourist city. People bring their pets. In the last week, I don't know, 5, 6, 8, 10 dogs have been lost and caught and hit by cars and rescued by the people that do this for free. Well, actually not for free, on their own dime. So I would just hope that you understand there's a balance there, and we could be very inundated with cats and dogs if we don't have a system to maintain them here, because there are so many that get lost and are dumped in Ocean Shore. So I hope you really do take that into consideration, because it's a horrific situation. In all honesty, I've been shocked at the last
That's
year.
time.
Thank you.
Another comment there in the back. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Mayor, Council. My name is Dan Hahn. I am a resident here in Ocean Shores. I know it's a lot of work that goes into these resolutions, and I really hope you will continue to work on it. I'm in support of trapping. I myself have done, I'd say, thousands of hours of trapping, and it's staying up all night. It is having multiple eyes on the trap. Excuse me. But anyways, I am in support. Thanks.
Anybody else got a comment? Yes, Jan.
Thank you. I do appreciate that the council and the mayor are considering some changes to this. I agree entirely that we need to do it properly. I'm not opposed to that. We need to do it safely. We need to have the animals protected. And that's the way it's been in the past with the people that have been out trying to get the animals back to their owners. I don't know, other than the Officer Beebe, that anyone's really ever complained about it. I hope that you will continue working on this. It's not in opposition trying to save an animal that you have been with for years that just doesn't want to come home. All right, so what do? We have people that will go out and will help the citizens and do it properly, and they have been doing it. So please continue on with this, work on it. Good luck with it. I hope that you will see something that will work for all of us. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? All right, council. Yes, Lisa.
I just want to say one of the things that's come across is there is a lot of work yet to be done on this ordinance, and I'm not sure 2 weeks is even going to be enough, because we've heard from most everybody that says there's parts they like, parts they don't, but it needs work. One of the things that I want to say is whatever experience people have had with Officer Beebe in the past, he has been vilified. And whether you support an ordinance or you don't, he is doing his job in following the law. And it's just disheartening. If we don't like the law and we want it changed, that's what we're doing. But he shouldn't be vilified and raked over the coals for doing his job. And as Scott Harris mentioned from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, that he commended the officers who were there. And I think it was BB Cox and I forget the other one. McComber from Fish and Wildlife. And I think it's important to recognize that. And we may not like the spirit of the ordinance, but we can and we are trying to rewrite that. So at this point, I would like to table this until we can get the parties at the table who could provide us some additional input, because I think even Lillian had a good point. And, I like the thought of maybe there's a couple of people that are licensed and trained. And I do believe that Dan, who spoke, was one that was licensed, and I think there's some merit in that, but it does take a little bit of extra work to get to. And the other thing that I struggle with is this coming forward before our court case is even resolved. I'm worried that the perception that this should at least be tabled until after the court makes a decision on the current case, and that's just my personal belief.
Go ahead, Richard.
So I have a question primarily for the lawyer, but my big concern is the liability to the city, and we all, most of us, recognize the work that has been done in returning lost pets to their owners, but in this past situation with the bears, it was very evident that it was a very dangerous situation, and we're just doggone lucky that there was not some serious injury. So my question to the lawyer, please, is what is the city's liability if somebody is injured by a trapped wild animal on private property? I've heard citizens say no liability, but I'm not a lawyer.
Well, thank you. What I can say is that for purposes of this ordinance, what's contemplated is that, for start, it's only the owner of a dog or cat that is lost or missing who would be authorized to either set the trap themselves or designate somebody to set the trap. And it would either be on their own property or on other private property with the explicit express permission of that property owner. And so there's an assumption of risk going on at that point. So I think there's no, in terms of liability, I can speak to what the city's overall liability would be. I can't say in terms of one private party versus another how that might play out. That's kind of outside the scope of this. But in terms of the liability to the city, just permitting somebody to do something either on their property or on the property of another with that person's express permission of this is an animal trap, understanding what that entails.
So I'm still confused. If the city was taken to court because somebody was injured on a private property, could this court find the city liable for tens or thousands or even millions of dollars? And that's my underlying basic question.
Right. So the way that the ordinance is crafted, no, in that case, it would be unlikely that the city would be liable for simply permitting the activity. For example, if somebody operates a trap to trap a fur-bearing mammal with a permit from Department of Fish and Wildlife, and there's some sort of injury to person that occurs from that, there's no liability to the Department of Fish and Wildlife for having issued that permit. So this would be, again, you're just allowing activity of a private party to take place either on their own property or on the property of somebody else who was given that express permission. Once that permission is given, then again, there's that assumption of risk that attaches. So there's, in terms of coming after the city, that would be extremely unlikely that the city would be liable for anything that occurs at that point.
So I have another question, but I'll give other people a chance to speak up. Allison has her hand up.
Yes, Allison, go ahead.
I think this is something that really needs to be worked on. I would hope that Department of Fish and Wildlife would play a huge role in writing this ordinance and participate in that. It concerns me a little bit that, anybody can go out and start setting out traps trying to catch cats and dogs or whatever. I do like the idea that there are specific people who are licensed and trained that are able to do this. But I think it's a thing that we need to continue to work on and definitely have Fish and Wildlife as a part of that conversation.
So then I have another question for the lawyer, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
So a constituent suggested a change that included written permission, and that makes my question, is an email sufficient to satisfy written permission if a case goes to court? I just don't know how sufficient email actually is.
Generally speaking, in most areas of the law, it's caught up to the point now where it recognizes electronic communications as writing for all sorts of purposes under the law. So if it were written permission that needed to be obtained, then through an email would typically suffice, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Lisa.
Thank you. I would just support what Lisa Scott said about tabling and making sure that we're doing a thorough review and involving Fish and Wildlife and others. Um, we we all choose to live here in a place that is very wildlife dense, and with that comes a responsibility of living in balance with our wildlife. And I often hear from our community that that's why they chose to live here, is because of our wildlife, and that we have a duty to preserve our wildlife and treat it respectfully. And I would not want to have any sort of change to a code that would actually make our balance with that worse, because we do have a responsibility to maintain that balance and try to preserve our wildlife, not just for those of us that choose to live there, but we do draw tourists who come here for our wildlife. And we've had to make decisions in the past that have been unpopular with our community when it came to wildlife, and when it came to feeding wildlife, and it was very unpopular, but we still chose to prohibit feeding wildlife because we knew it was better for the wildlife to do that. So I hope that we listen to the Fish and Wildlife Department.
Yeah, Rich.
And I don't mean to step on toes, but anytime we're trying to put something together, I like all the stakeholders involved. Stakeholders, in my opinion, now is community, obviously council, but I'm going to pull in the police department and code enforcement and Fish and Wildlife from the state. So again, I don't know all of the ways we put this down on paper, but if all of those factions weren't a little bit of a part of it, I think it'd be great if we did bring them into the fold.
Including Vivian Dahl, who's been a tremendous asset to the community and what she's done. And I also believe Tom mentioned that, I'm hoping I got your name right, Dan Hahn, that you were at one point or are licensed, and you may be able to provide some feedback. Certified. Okay, thank you. But maybe somebody like from the community that could add a little bit to that would be great. But making sure that all parties are part of this, and it's going to be compromising, coming up with something that's defensible and we feel comfortable with.
Denise.
Yeah, I totally agree with what was talked about in terms of tabling this. And it is a difficult balance that we're seeing all over the town. But I do think that I think Rich's idea of bringing everybody in is important, because the number of domestic animals that need to be rescued continues to grow and grow. And I don't see a solution to that unless we tackle it, including in this.
All right, thanks, Denise. Yes, Lisa?
And just, I realize that we're talking and we're going to keep working on it, but I don't know if it's enough just to say it's the lost pet owner that's involved in giving permission, and the property owner that said, yes, you can put the trap there. Because if it's my neighbor that has given permission for a trap to be put there, the angry mother of whatever was trapped could still be on my property, endangering me or my pets that are on my property. So it's not just those people we need to take in consideration. It's everybody that lives here that could be impacted by a wild animal that is trapped accidentally. Because the angry other wildlife may not just be on those people's property that have given permission.
Yeah, Richard.
The first thing, I think that we all, and everybody in this room agrees that recovering lost pets is a very worthwhile thing to do. I want to commend the people who put this ordinance, who first drafted this ordinance. It was a good first effort, but as has been abundantly pointed out, it needs some work. And I look forward to seeing what comes back, but I want to say it's a good starting place, and that's what we needed, is a starting place. And I agree with Lisa Scott that the timing, I'd like to see that the timing improved when we bring this back. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would like to make a motion to table this and work on finding a better way to either word it or to make it more friendly to everybody without putting the city at risk, individuals at risk, department, or animals at risk.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to number 9 on the list.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And that's, okay, a request of the City Council of the City of Ocean Shores, Washington to award the Chinook Park fence and ADA parking space work to KR Homes, and that's going to be presented by Becky Leach.
Good evening, Council, citizens of Ocean Shores. So we're back to Chinook Park once again. I have a request of the City Council of Ocean Shores to award the sidewalk fence and ADA parking space work to KR Homes. We are going to be building, and I'll have a more firm date at the next council meeting, but the playground, the much-awaited playground at Chinook Park, Saturday, May 18th, is the fairly firm, little bit tentative date to install the playground. And we have to have an ADA sidewalk ramp into that playground. So we put out a bid for a new ADA parking space, and then it will connect to the current sidewalk that is there. And there are drawings in the agenda. And then a new sidewalk will connect to that will ramp then down into the new playground space that will be installed. And then there will also be a new wheelchair swing, and the fence that was included in this bid will go around the wheelchair swing as a safety feature for that swing to eliminate struck-by accidents for that swing. And we put this bid out as an option. We did an option for concrete and an option for asphalt. The low bid for the asphalt was $38,845, and the low bid for concrete was $41,881. Concrete is a better product. It's going to last longer. It's going to need less maintenance. So we're recommending to go with the concrete bid, which KR Homes was the low bid for $41,881.96. This is also being paid for with the ARPA funds that was already put in for Chinook Park. We won't be going over budget for Chinook Park as a whole, but I am asking for a budget amendment to move the rest of the dog park funds that we didn't spend at the dog park and just shift that money to the whole of Chinook Park. So all of the money that we have left will be for a whole of Chinook Park. And then after this project is done at Chinook Park, we'll still have $17,000 and some odd dollars left at Chinook Park for future enhancements of that ARPA money. And there is a final budget sheet in the agenda as well that shows after this project, we'll have $17,104 left in the budget for additional 2024-2025 work at Chinook Park. So all that being said, what I'm asking for tonight is to award KR Homes this work in the amount of $41,881.96, and then to move the dog park remaining ARPA funds of $20,190.49 from the dog park ARPA budget to the Chinook Park ARPA budget. It's a mouthful.
All right. Do we have any public comment? I guess not. Council? Yes, Rich?
Question for you. So the ARPA funds, hypothetically, you could have said you wanted to move them to North Bay Park or another park. Do you have something in mind? Do you and the Parks Board have anything on your targets that you want to continue to improve in this park? Or should we really be directing this to a different park?
There's a basketball court at Chinook Park that we could resurface. And one of the things that I talked about with Kristen on the Parks Board was moving the hoop from where it is now to the other side so that when people are shooting baskets, if they miss the basket, it doesn't go into the playground. So resurfacing the basketball court that's at Chinook Park and moving the hoop to the other side. And then we also took the fence down and we'd like to put soccer nets up. There's a big open field area and we'd like to put soccer nets up. And to do that, we'd like to put the fence back up that was taken down. And the fence that was taken down on the road there on Duck Lake Drive needed to come down because it was just rusty and decrepit, and we need a new fence up there along the road.
Anybody else?
I'd like to just make a motion to, of the City Council of the City of Ocean Shores to award the Chinook Park fence and ADA parking work to K&R Homes, with also having the money moved from the Chinook Park playground or dog park to the Chinook Park Fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We have no discussion tonight. We have no executive sessions. So agenda review will be April 11th at 9 a.m. and it'll be Scott, Taylor, and Sires. So we have Good of the Union and Good of the Union, yeah. I've said that or heard that just way too many times. That was a reflex there. All right. Lisa Griebel, would you like to start?
Just like to thank all of our community members that were here for public comment and those that provide it in writing in advance or even through the internet. It's awesome. We love to hear from community members. That helps us make informed decisions. But I also like that we do still have a lens that there are 8,000 people that live in our wonderful community and people that visit here, people that work here, and to always keep our decisions on what's best for everybody. So great job, everybody.
All right, thanks. Richard.
So I would like to thank the Fish and Wildlife and other people, the lawyers and so forth that came and participated and was very informative. And like Lisa, I really appreciate all of the public comments. And we live in such a great community. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank all of you because you're what makes this a great place to be. Thank you.
Tom.
I want to thank you all for showing up, for speaking your mind, no matter what side you stand on. This is why we do this job, is for you. So thank you for being here, and there's cake in the back.
Lisa.
Well, I want to say happy birthday, Tom. And a big shout out to Defenders of the Coast for the Pocket Park. That is so incredible. That is one of the highlights, I think. Sorry to take away from your berm, but it's one of the highlights for this year. It's nice having that connection on the sidewalk as well as the Pocket Park, a bench, and it's just a great project. Also, I want to just say thank you to everyone that showed up tonight and everyone that shows up to all of the community meetings, the council meetings. The passion in this in our small city is incredible. So keep it up. You're the reason we do what we do. So thank you.
Denise.
I also want to thank not just Defenders of the Coast, but anybody else, including the people who provided lunch, and as well as our city employees for helping out with that pocket park. It really is a nice addition. I also wanted to let you know that on March 9th, there was the Harborside Dialogue Project that happened it was held at the elementary school. Unfortunately, only 15 people showed up for that. However, the Dialogue Project has a website, and they have published a summary of what happened at that in terms of the input that those 15 people gave as to what was the most important in our community. So if you go to the website, it's a Dialogue Project, go scroll down to Harborside Chats, and you'll see what the priorities were for those 15 people who attended. And for council, I can send you a link. But what was interesting is the first thing that got 5 votes, and that was out of 15, was for mental health resources in town. And the second does involve council, and it was consideration and oversight by city government for the future environment through ordinances against fertilizers and pesticides use. So those were the 2 top things that came out of that Harborside chat.
Allison.
I want to thank everybody that came out to our town hall to talk about the waterways. There was a lot of great information that came from that. And also to all the volunteers that worked on the pocket park, and for all you guys that come out to our meetings and speak up and give your opinions.
Rich.
And I had failed to mention earlier that the golf course is working hard to get things up to speed, and they are reshooting all of their pictures that will help them update their websites and make it more attractive and up to date.
All right, thanks. Can I get a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.